Hey everybody, it's Emily. Welcome to another grass over microclass on this gorgeous day. Doesn't even feel like winter. I don't have mittens on. So we're going to be taking a break from our tracking classes, but we will be talking about something equally wintry. What if I told you that some turtles that spend the winter in ponds go 6 months without taking a breath? Yeah, so some turtles spend up to 6 months locked under the ice in a pond or inland lake without taking a breath. And this includes some of our pretty common turtle species like painted turtles and snapping turtles. And so for turtles, winter poses a very unique problem. This problem of a severe shortage of oxygen. And that's very different than the main problem posed by winter for a lot of other animals, like our endotherms or warm-blooded animals like mammals and birds. Main problem is freezing temperatures and lack of food to, they have to eat a lot in order to maintain this high metabolism to literally fuel their body furnace and maintain this high body temperature. And then for turtles, this lack of oxygen is also very different than another common problem of winter, which is literally freezing solid, which is a problem for some of our other ectotherms or cold-blooded animals like wood frogs that spend the winter on land, because turtles are spending, or at least, painted and snapping turtles are spending the winter in ponds, where ponds don't ever freeze totally to the bottom because the densest, the temperature at which water is densest is 39 degrees Fahrenheit, so obviously above freezing. So that water level, that water layer sinks to the bottom and maintains that 39 degrees. So turtles don't ever have to worry about freezing to death, but definitely this severe lack of oxygen is a thing. So let's talk about how they get around to that. All right, so let's imagine we're turtles and we're hanging out in a pond, and then, maybe it's November or so, and a thin layer of ice starts to form on top of the pond. And in the beginning, it's not that big of a deal because this ice is really thin, really clear and transparent, so sunlight can still penetrate into the pond. And so all those aquatic plants on the bottom are still photosynthesizing and giving off oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis, just like trees do. And so there's a lot of dissolved oxygen in the water still. This is interesting, actually, because turtles still aren't able to come to the surface and take a breath, which they don't have gills. You wouldn't think that they're able to utilize that dissolved oxygen in the water like something like a fish can, but turtles are able to, and scientists still don't know how, but we think maybe it has to do with gas exchange at the really thin areas of skin, like around the mouth and the cloaca, which is like a combination opening of digestive tract and reproductive tract for turtles. So they still are able to get some oxygen in the beginning. Oxygen is being produced into the water by these aquatic plants. But then when the ice layer gets thicker and starts to get more opaque and snow is on top of the ice and very little sunlight penetrates. And so these plants go dormant, and then the level of dissolved oxygen really only goes down from there. And so if we're a turtle, we're swimming around and we're like, okay, it's time, go to the bottom. And usually turtles brumate, which is kind of the ectothermic version of hibernation, meaning metabolism slows way down and they're dormant. They brumate under mud at the bottom of the pond, and their body temperature, they're ectotherms, it matches the surrounding environment, so their body temperature is about 39 degrees, and they hang out there for months. All right, so these turtles are hanging out on the bottom of the pond under the mud. Their metabolism is really low because their body temperature is only 39 degrees. And they are still taking on some oxygen, still consuming some oxygen though, because their metabolism doesn't totally stop. But at some point in the winter, the amount of oxygen that they're able to get from the pond could be not as much as they would normally need to carry on this very low level of metabolism. And this is dangerous because what happens when you don't get enough oxygen and your metabolism is still running is that lactic acid starts to build up in the blood and it starts to acidify the blood. And this is exactly what happens when you're working out really hard and then your muscles start to burn. You're not taking in enough oxygen as you're burning up in metabolism. So what these turtles do, they have this really cool adaptation to avoid their blood acidifying, because that is toxic in the long term. These turtles would be in serious trouble, maybe even die, if they didn't have this cool adaptation. So they're able to actually release positive ions into their blood that counteracts the acidification. Positive ions like magnesium, calcium, and potassium, they make the blood more basic, less acidic, so it counteracts this. And that's how turtles are able to survive under the ice without taking a breath of air for 6 months. And one more interesting thing I should note, so I've been talking about how turtles usually bury themselves in mud, or at least under leaves in the pond, and this puzzled scientists for a while because they're then actually able to take on less oxygen that way because their body isn't in as much contact with the water where the low levels of dissolved oxygen are. But scientists think that turtles do this, they take that cost of less oxygen to reap the benefit of predator protection. So if a painted turtle is ruminating, spending the winter on the edge of a frozen pond, it is kind of a sitting duck for something like a raccoon. There's an airplane. Something like a raccoon or something that, might be able to take advantage of the turtle's super vulnerable state if they were able to break through the ice. So now you know maybe everything you wanted to know about turtles in winter. I hope you're as jazzed about it as I am. I will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.